Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is start, and this is part 2 of our discussion of the verb. As I mentioned in part 1, we've got so many phrasal verbs, so let's do a quick review of some of the basic definitions of our verb start, and then we'll continue on with some more phrasal verbs. We discussed in part 1 that start is commonly used to talk about beginning. This could be beginning something from a particular point in time or space, but it could also mean beginning a new venture. This could be a new job, a new hobby, a new activity. A third way we can use the verb start might mean to use a particular point, action, or circumstance as an opening for a particular course of action. In part 1, I mentioned how some people will use different stretching movements to start their exercise for the day. So this is how they begin the activity. A fourth way to use the verb start could mean for something to happen or to cause something else to happen. As I thought about these different meanings, I was watching a little news a bit earlier and heard someone interviewed and asked, when did the fire start? When did it happen? A fifth way to use the verb start could mean to begin operating or to begin being used. This is most commonly going to be used with various kinds of machines and electronics. A sixth way we can use the verb start might mean to give a signal to competitors to begin a particular race. So really common to hear this in running events. So this could be track and field, cross country. You hear it used in various cycling competitions, skating, swimming, but generally when we're talking about things in which one person is seeing who can be the fastest to do a particular thing. For now, you should know that start is a regular verb. If you want to make the progressive form of this verb, all you need to do is add ing, and that forms starting. The past tense and participle form of our verb can be made by adding ed. And when we add ed here, we're going to make an id sound, and that adds an extra syllable to the verb. So the past tense and the participle form of the verb should sound like this: started. Started. Okay. Now let's continue with some more phrasal verbs. The next one we'll discuss is to start on. This can have a few different meanings. One way to use it is to talk about beginning the undertaking of some task or activity. An example of this might be, we'll start on a new chapter next week. This is an example of the simple future using will. Maybe this is something a teacher or tutor says to their student, right? They're going to begin this new particular part of a book or an area of study. Another way to use start on could mean to instruct, cause, or compel someone to begin doing something. An example of this might be, they're starting me on dishes, but I think I'll be a server in a few months. This is an example of present progressive or present continuous. So someone is being asked to do the work of, sounds like dishwashing, likely in a restaurant or that kind of an establishment, I think, in hopes that they will learn more, maybe we'll see how this person performs with this opportunity to grow into another role. A third way to use start on could mean to instruct or cause someone to begin a particular kind of treatment. An example of this might be, the doctor started her on a low dose last week. So here it's describing maybe the beginning of a new kind of medication for the person, and that the quantity of it is not so large. Another phrasal verb you might encounter is to start out. This could mean to be at the beginning or early stages of some kind of endeavor. An example of this might be, she was one of my mentors when I was starting out in education. There's an example of the past progressive. So kind of describing that ongoing activity. Another phrasal verb you might encounter is to start out as. This means to have one begin at some basic or low-level position, especially as the first stage of some kind of process of development. An example of this in a sentence might be, he started out as a production assistant on movies and eventually worked his way up to directing many award-winning films. So here we've got a simple past tense sentence. We've got this completed action. Someone began at what is thought to be kind of a low level part of producing or making movies, and now has a more advanced or more senior level position. The next phrasal verb we'll discuss is to start out on. This can mean to begin undertaking some type of journey or process. An example of this might be, Magellan started out on his most famous voyage in September 1519. There's another example of the simple past tense talking about a completed action. The next phrasal verb you may encounter is to start over. It just means to begin something again or to begin anew. An example of this would be, many refugees have started over in new countries after years of struggle. There's an example of the present perfect. The next phrasal verb we'll discuss is to start up. This can mean to begin functioning, operating, or running, or to cause something to begin functioning, operating, or running. An example of this could be, will the engine start up? There's another yes or no question in the simple future. The final phrasal verb we'll discuss is to start with. This can have a couple different meanings. One way to use it means to begin some endeavor with a particular resource. An example of this might be, each player starts with $1,500 in the game of Monopoly. So here the resource is pretend or paper money used in this particular board game. The last meaning we'll discuss for start with would be to begin some process with a particular thing. An example of this could be, does the family start every meal with a prayer? This is an example of a simple present question where we're asking about a habit or routine. Now, let's spend a moment looking at some words and phrases that utilize our verb of the day, start. And we're going to begin with the noun start up. This generally refers to a newly established business, so not something that has been around for decades or longer. An example of how you might hear this being used, she's going to take the position with the new startup. And that might even sound a little redundant. You just might hear with a startup. Maybe this person was considering a more well-established business versus something newer. Another word you might encounter is the adjective starting. This is generally describing something that is beginning, commencing, or is the first part of something. An example of this could be, she's going to negotiate her starting salary or the amount of money she will make in this new role. Now let's move on and talk about a few phrases. The first you might encounter is to start something. Many times this is used to suggest that somebody is going to make some trouble. So an example of this, don't start something with your sister. Our guests will be here any minute. So something I think I've heard many parents use or different variations. So this might be don't start hitting, don't start fighting, don't start sort of picking at one another. Another phrase you might encounter is just don't start. So here, this is generally used in the imperative or as a command, and what someone is asking another person to do is not to complain or to criticize. So an example, someone might say, I said I'll do it. Don't start with me. So here, don't complain, don't criticize. So we're really asking someone probably to stop speaking. The last phrase you might encounter is to start a family. Many times, new couples are asked about when they plan to conceive their first child. Now, sometimes this can be really offensive, and others would suggest two people can they themselves be a family. But if you hear that phrase, generally it's referring to the activity of having children. So, an example of this, are they planning on starting a family? So maybe you're asking family members, other friends about others. I should say this is not always thought to be the most polite question because it can be very personal. There could be various medical things going on, and could lead to someone feeling really uncomfortable about having to disclose or share something that may be quite private to them. Well, thank you so much for watching today's discussion of START. If you haven't already checked out part 1, I'll link to it in the comments below. But thanks for watching this part, and I hope you have a great day.